education and any ideas and concerns that people have about what this the unprecedented cuts that we had this year are having on their education. And I think this is an issue that affects more than just parents with kids in public schools. These are issues that affect entire communities, entire neighborhoods. And, we think that this is probably the most important issue in the state, that the state, most important responsibility of the state is to provide a quality public education to people. And I think we've laid out our concerns over the last few months pretty clearly, that we did not think this was the way to go, but the reality is it happened. And now we want to make sure that we can plan for next year's budget cycle, so that when we are going to work on the budget, that we are able to communicate clearly and consistently the concerns that we've heard from people in Grand Rapids, and I know other people across the state. So, at this point, I'll just let Roy say a few words, and then I was hoping we would not have to be the ones speaking so much, but we're really concerned and really eager to hear what other people have to say about this.
Thank you. Hi, Roy Schmidt, 76th District. A couple things. I've been walking door to door for 2 months, and it's pretty amazing from my perspective of a couple issues, and one of them is education. And a lot of parents have talked about the cuts, and I guess they don't understand why there's cuts when there's a surplus. And specifically, not only teachers but family with kids. If there's one thing that I've found in my 20 years of elected service is that kids and families, people know what's going on in education because of their kids. And I'm guess it's again, as Rep. Dillon stated, and I hear everything you said. People are very frustrated that education and the other thing was we're not here to talk about it was the tax on pensions. A lot of other things gets missed in the wind and in the whole budget process. But I tell you what, kids, number one, for their families, they want the best for their kids. They want them to do better than their parents, and they do not understand cuts to education. And they know it by reduced class size. And then the other issue that kind of blows my mind after 20 years is coming to the state legislature and having new members specifically on the other side of the aisle saying, what do you mean by categorials being cut? And when they don't even know and they're voting for it, it's pretty scary. An urban core city, in not only Detroit, certain Grand Rapids and many others couldn't afford a cut in the first place, and then to get specific cuts on top of the regular per pupil cut is pretty decimating to them. So I think, as Rep. Dillon said, we're going to keep working hard. I urge legislators to get into classrooms and not just for 20 minutes like they want to show you around, but actually like spend a day. And especially the last 2 months, we had time. I was walking door to door, visiting, seeing, and that's what we're doing, and that's what we're supposed to do. And if they would spend the time, and obviously they can't in the summer, but there's Monday and Friday when they can spend a whole day, and I would really suggest that, and they would really see the cuts that they're putting on our kids in Michigan. They need to be educated, and it's a continuing process, and that's my best suggestion. But other than that, we'd love to hear anything else.
Anybody got anything? Question? I think you can probably hear.
Yeah.
Yeah, if I don't.
I am a mother of daughter. I've been in the district as a parent with my parents and ever increasingly worried about the state of not only my children's education, but both the education of my fellow parents across the state. The central theme of the budget cuts regarding education education, has been balanced the budget on that budget, and I'm not. I am, as a parent, I've seen many important items in the district school go by the wayside due to these cuts. Here are a few. Outsourced busing. Creating havoc with special needs students in the district as well. My daughter has to ride 4 different buses. My oldest daughter. She has to get on a bus in the morning, like go 7, and then take that bus to go on another bus to go to 6. In the afternoon, she has to go on the bus from 6 to CA Park, which passes my house, my little house, twice, our street, 3 times before she can get home. Which is an extra hour in her schedule. She calls it as a kindergarten on a little house. If I were to have to work at that time, I would not be able to work. Get to work. Outrageous how the busing system has changed, and I'm disgusted. Lack of money to provide needed resource materials for the students. Textbooks. My daughter just informed me that she can't take her Spanish book home because of the budget cuts. There's no money for all the students to be able to have a Spanish book to take it home. So how is she supposed to be able to do her homework at home, her Spanish homework, which is a foreign language and is very hard to learn, especially at this age? How is she supposed to do that appropriately when she does not have a textbook at home? She has to keep it at school. She can't take it home. The computers. We don't have enough computers. Computers are the next, we are already in the computer age. Everything is computers. Everything is technology. We even have the blended model schools within the Grand Rapids Public Schools. And to not be able to have enough computers for our students or updated computer systems is kind of hard for them, especially for our ESL students who are learning to speak English. And we have Rosetta Stone that is available to them, but do we have the computers to use it? Not all the time. No. ESL services, that's been cut. We had a wonderful ESL program at Harrison last year. We don't have it this year. The people that we had for the ESL program has been cut. We don't have them anymore. Paraprofessional staff, that has been cut also. We don't have enough paraprofessionals in the schools to be able to manage the amount of schools. Harrison Park is a pre-K to 8 building. It is an elementary model, and it has a lot of students. We do not have the right amount of staff for the ratio of students that we have. I'm a nurse, and for nursing and CNA, nurses' assistants, we have to have a certain ratio of staff per resident. That ratio for students to staff in the schools, unequal. And it's unequal to the detriment of the students. Increased class sizes with a decrease of number of teaching staff. We have a lot of the kindergarten classrooms are 30 students per class. We have 1 teacher in most of these classes. They have to file their students outside to be able to meet the parents, and they have to keep an eye on all 30 of these students in the playground to be able to make sure that the right person picks them up. And that is very difficult for the staff because all the teachers, all the students, all the parents, all right there, and trying to keep an eye on all the little mini-me's that are running around along with the other ones from other classes. We need more staff. These are a pitiful few among the many. The cuts made to art, gym, and music classes. These students within the GRPS, and I do not know about the other districts, have art half of the year. Gym, once a week. We're the fattest state around. And we have gym for our children once a week, 40 minutes a week. That's not enough. We're trying to push a healthy state, healthy choices, and we're telling our students, you can only have physical education once a week. for 40 minutes. That's not enough. Art, half of the year. They have to share that with music. I just found out that my oldest daughter has to choose between two of her loves, art and music, by the time she's in 10th grade. That's unfair. When I was in the Grand Rapids Public School District, because I am a graduate of the GRPS, I didn't have that choice. I had it all year round. And I think that my children deserve the same thing. And we were way worse back then. We were poor. And we're even poorer now, but we did it then. Why can't we do it now? I want to know what you guys plan to do to balance this back in the favor of our children.
Well, there's two things I'll just say real quickly. My mom actually taught at Harrison up until 2 years ago, and she's at City now. And she's actually an art teacher at City. So I know she's seen firsthand some of the problems that we've had. But I think what we are hoping to do, and as I said before, is Representative Schmidt and I were adamantly opposed to what we did this year. And I think the biggest reason Roy hit on it was we had a surplus in the school aid fund. And the choice was made by the governor and others in the legislature to use that surplus to help backfill a hole created by a big business tax cut, in the hopes that somehow we'd be able to create jobs and then magically revenue would appear. What we want to do, and I think I'm pretty sure Roy signed onto this too, but I know one of the issues that's come up is when Proposal A was passed, the intent of the money in the school aid fund was to go towards K through 12 education. Part of the governor's plan was to peel off hundreds of millions of dollars out of the surplus we had and use that for community colleges and other universities. We think that's not correct. And what we're fighting for is one thing is a ballot initiative or a constitutional amendment that we've co-sponsored to put on the ballot first and foremost, allow the voters to clarify what the intent of Proposal A was, that it can only be used for K through 12 schools. If we would have followed that this year, we wouldn't be talking about the issues you've eloquently laid out for us. We would have had a $260 per pupil increase for students this year, which wouldn't have solved all the problems in our school districts, but it certainly would have made that we didn't have to lay off, dozens and dozens of teachers and support staff in Grand Rapids Public Schools. We had to close a couple buildings. The ESL you're talking about was part of a sweeping elimination of all the categorical funds that a district like Grand Rapids receives. We had to cut 19 small class size teachers in Grand Rapids, and those were grants that Grand Rapids used to get to keep classes between K and third grade at a certain level, because research has showed us pretty clearly that if kids don't reach those certain benchmarks by third grade, they're going to continue to fall beyond even further. We laid off 19 of those teachers that were funded by that categorical grant. I'm going to give Roy this, but I think what you can expect from us is to fight within the legislature. And I think what we will be able to do when the next budget comes up is to have a larger quiver of ammunition and arrows to be able to say, not just here's what we think is going to happen, but here's what happened when you did this last year. And it's having devastating consequences for you and other families that you, I think, are speaking for today.
Well, I can add very little to that. Very well stated. One, I want to thank you for eloquently laying it out instead of hitting on a thing. You hit the whole budget cuts in related exactly to your kids, and this is what I hear all the time. And another example I heard of reading. We had 30 reading programs, 15 were cut. I mean, if there's one thing, again, in my 20 years of public service, it's parents caring about their kids getting the best education. Everything else, I mean, they want a job, but they want to make sure their kids get a good education. So we are going to keep fighting. And I think, again, going back to what I stated earlier, educating the legislator, please come in, see how they have to share that book, or they're not on technology, or to actually witness it. We can have these meetings that we have constantly, but to witness it, and that's all I suggest. That's what we want them to do. And if they do, they're going to see that, hey, this is wrong. We can't eliminate 140 jobs over 140 jobs and cut school buildings because we think it's the right thing to do. Transfer 490 million out of the school aid fund for and put it into community colleges. No way. You know, if we don't take care of education, and that's at every level, the state in the country is only going to fall farther behind. It's the number one thing we should never ever cut. We actually invite them all the time, but we're going to suggest, and I know that the superintendent here, the educators, are really going to put a push on doing that, and you know, we can ask them, and I'm sure they will, but again, not for 20 minutes, not for a tour, but to actually sit in the classroom, and that's all we can suggest, and respectfully try to get them to understand. Yeah, just a couple of the Senate bills I think you're referring to, and they've just been introduced, and I have not had the time to go through them, but I did have the opportunity last night, very briefly, to talk to the main sponsor of the bills, and just on that particular question, and respectfully, you know, we didn't have a lot of time, but he did make a comment. Somebody asked him about it, so I kind of popped in and I said, regarding the ability to privatize teachers, we're referring to, I said, well, you know, maybe I've never heard of it, but has this ever been done before? And he said, no. I'm going, wow. And I just said, you know, again, with all due respect, I'll give him the time to explain it, but where does that come from? I mean, you know, this one thing again about teachers is I have a couple family members that are teachers. They're very passionate people, and they're very, very hardworking. And you know, that's a job that's, you know, beyond words to try to be able to do. And I'm sure most parents understand that. But to I don't know where this is coming from. I guess I can't wait to find out. But I thought maybe it was based after some other bill. So I think we have a long way to go, and I hope everybody's, again, very skeptical until we actually can have some proof and not go, well, this sounds really good, let's do it. No, I think we've tried that enough in Michigan.
I just real quick, I haven't had a chance to read the bills, but I've read some of the articles that have been written about what was intending to come. I think it's Senator Pavlov, and there's a whole reform package that's a big piece of it. But I think it really points out, it goes back to what I think reinforces what we're trying to do here today. I think what you're seeing from the other side of the aisle primarily is trying to throw darts at a dartboard and hope that you're going to hit a bullseye on the thing that somehow is going to be able to replace safe school districts money or replace what we've taken away without actually giving it back. And I think there is a specific formula for public education that we know works in many districts. Adequate funding, strong quality teachers, and a strong community behind those students. It works. And to try to come up with what I think in many cases are gimmicks, one-time fixes, I don't think serves our students well. And especially if there's no research or data to back up the effectiveness of something like this, I think you're really gambling in a dangerous way with kids' futures and the quality of their education. But again, I think, I do think there's room for reform in our public school system. We always have to be willing to look at new ways of doing things. But one of the things I want to make sure we do is any of those changes, whether it's how we fund schools or how we make policy that directly affects the classroom, is that those ideas come from the grassroots up, not from, some ivory tower in Lansing or Washington, D.C., where somebody in a think tank decides this is a great idea, we think it'll work, let's try it out on these kids. And if it doesn't work, oh, well, we can start over. I just think that's the wrong way to go.
The analogy that if you were a patient in a hospital or a nursing home, better, and you had a person who was an agency worker, they're just a clock the hour, not there with a vested interest, what would you rather have? Would you rather have that one person that's not interested in knowing you and knowing that if your blood sugar is 50, you might need something? Or would you want the person who knows you better, the person that is there all the time and has the vested interest and knows that you like to be called Bob? Which one would you rather have? Pose that question to your counterparts, because that is the essence of that. Having an outsourced teacher who does not have a vested interest in our schools, they're not going to have the interest to teach the students the way they need to be taught. The teachers that we have now have been around for years. They know our students. They know what they need. They know how to treat them. They know how to deal with their behaviors. They know if they're sad or if they're just having a bad day, and they can work around it.
Appreciate that. Here's the Senate bills. As you can see, there's about 3 inches of brand new stuff. When I think Rep. Dillon said it great, where there's nothing wrong with working on reform, but this is just pile on. Let's make sure we know, like you stated, what works. And I'll give you the analogy of a pharmaceutical rep who goes to a doctor and he shows them the different drugs to take care of high blood pressure. And what they do is usually give a sample of my drug and then some other drug, and we'll see which one works. Well, a lot of times what happens is the patient feels good or decides they don't want to take it, and the doctor doesn't know. It's the analogy of, well, I don't know if that's working, but let's try this. We know what works. And what you were stating about what's lost in the arts. And when I went to Union High School and graduated, we had the opportunity to do gym every day. We had art, you name it, we had the opportunity to do it. And so we keep cutting those basics, and I think it really hurts, especially I think in an urban core city. And if there's anything we can help educate our colleagues on the other side is again, participate, find out what it's like. Listen to your story, which was a perfect example of the deterioration slowly, bit by bit. And not having the textbooks is just a travesty. So, I guess from there we'll see what happens to these bills.
I have a couple issues. One is the funding between districts. I'm quite sure that it's still not equitable. I haven't seen anything written recently, but the last I had seen, Forest Hill students were still worth more, like $1,000 more than Grand Rapids students per child.
Significant disparity. Not so much within Kent County, although you're right, there's certain school districts that are able to fund their students at a higher per pupil basis. But where we see the biggest disparities are between districts like Grand Rapids, districts like Bloomfield Hills. I think at one point it was up to $12,000 per student. There's been some work with the way the formula is done, the 2X formula, to try to bring up those base foundation allowance districts. But you're absolutely right, and the kind of the what's ironic about it, I guess sadly ironic, is the districts that need the most help with their funding are the ones that are at the lowest end of the scale by and large. It's usually your districts that prior to Proposal A did not have a big property tax revenue base or large commercial or very high-end residential homes. So that problem only continues. We've made a little progress, but it's something we need to continue working on. But I can tell you, we have colleagues on our side of the aisle too that represent some of those areas, and they're fiercely defensive about taking money away from their district. But there is a fundamental fairness issue that we need to continue to address, because every dollar that goes to a district where they get a higher per pupil allowance is a dollar that's taken away from one of the kids in Grand Rapids Public Schools.
Right, and that's my point, is that it's the low income districts that end up continuing to pay that price, when the theory is that all students are supposed to be educated equally and fit into the same hole and pass the same MEP test or whatever other criteria is being with less funding. My second question or comment has to do with specialists, which has been brought up in a couple ways already. I know that at the elementary level, phys ed, art, and music teachers do not need to have those certifications at the elementary level. As a former phys ed teacher, I know that teaching phys ed is not the same as playing games. And to have a classroom K through 6 certification, which may mean that in college somebody took one PE related class and they're now delegated to teach phys ed. I'm floored with that. And I know that's the case in art and music as well.
I think all I could add is you're right, and we talk about the obesity. It is a horrible tragedy in Michigan. But besides the physical, the education part of it is so important, and actually learned so much from my son who is very active in sports about the nutrition, and there's a lot of private agencies coming together, but they should be coming together, and I think they're partnering with GR Public Schools and others, but we're obviously, it's not working. I mean, again, as my other former job for 9 years in pharmaceutical, the doctors would just be shocked at what's happening with kids. So we have the two-layered one. They need to be educated to be trained, and we should be putting that money there and actually preaching how educationally we help the families, and it helps the whole family. So yeah, that's all I can add. Hope that answered.
Colleges. you talked through about K through 12. I've got a daughter that in the 4 years she's been at Michigan, her tuition's gone up. And you talked about cuts. Basically, all you said anything was K through 12. You haven't even touched on.
This meeting was specifically on K through 12. I can start on that whole bandwagon too. I mean, I have a son too, two that have loans, and we constantly meet with colleagues. In fact, we had a kind of a sub meeting with our colleagues and a couple presidents, and I think they have to be very careful what they say. But I'd be shocked if they couldn't tell you, that the debt. They'll keep saying they keep putting money back, additional money in for loans or per the students, so they get extra tuition money, but it is not keeping pace. And I, as a parent that actually had to go through the loans in college, trying to figure it out for my son, it is enormous. I couldn't imagine Michigan. This was at Community and then at Grand Valley. So that's a whole nother layer that we need to. I mean, I think we're driving them out by driving the tuition that we're not helping anymore with the kids. I mean, the young college kids, I should say, is getting out of hand.
What is it that you can bring to help? I mean, not only help K through 12, but help with the further education.
Well, let me start from one of the first things the governor said at the State of State address, which got a lot of applause from me, from Roy, from a lot of people who care about not just K through 12, which we were focusing on today, but community college and higher education. The governor said, we've got to stop looking at education as K through 12. We've got to look at it as P through 20. That was great, but the governor's approach, unfortunately, was to take the money out of the school aid fund to help fund universities, but on top of that, then gave them a 15% cut, which forced many of the universities, University of Michigan included, to raise tuition. We've gone, in 20 years' time, we've gone from the state providing over 70% of the funding for our 15 public universities to about 27% on average. It's even lower. Michigan gets more than some of our other schools just because of the nature of the work they do there. But, I think one of the simple answer is we have to find a way to fund it, and fund it at a level that allows middle class kids who finish either in Grand Rapids Public Schools or Kentwood Public Schools or wherever they are to be able to feel like they can actually go to college, afford to pay for it, and not come out strapped with $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 in debt. And the only way we're going to do it is to make sure that we, I think, make that commitment that we failed to make this year, that education is our number one priority. The reality is we had the money this year. If we would have done what the governor suggested in his State of the State and taken school aid money that, I don't think should be used for higher education. I think that's a general fund obligation. But let's say for a second that we did. We took that extra $400 million in surplus, or $600 million at the time in surplus in the school aid fund, and just kept our public schools, our K through 12 schools, harmless this year in terms of funding. No reductions, but no increases. And then took the anticipated surplus and transferred that into community colleges and higher education. We wouldn't have been cutting them 15%. We would have actually been giving them a 2, 3, maybe 4% increase, which would have kept tuition at least stable this year. It wouldn't have forced universities to make that decision. But instead, what we did was we took that money and backfilled it to finance a $1.8 billion tax cut. I mean, there's no dispute about what the facts were. That's what we did. And the hope, I think, on the governor's part, I can't speak for him, was that this was the way to get Michigan's economy moving again. And ultimately, we'll get to a place where we have more jobs, more revenue, and we can fund these things. In the meantime, we haven't seen one job created. We also are going to have a whole generation of kids who are going to be impacted by the fact that not only is it more difficult to get through K-12, but if you are able to afford, or you're able to get into a college like Michigan, you might have to make the decision that you can't go because you can't afford it. And there's not an easy solution. We do have tough budget times, but I think there's three things that we here in Grand Rapids have talked about: education, public safety, and funding for our cities. Those should be your three top priorities in the legislature. And once you fund those, then you can look at funding some of the other areas of the budget, or maybe give some tax breaks to certain individuals or companies. But we need to fund those first. Those are the first obligations of our state government.
In the past, so, I mean, they're trying something new because this system is broke. There's no doubt about it. I mean, what irritates me too is I've got a son right here at CC. I can pay his tuition on a credit card. I can't, at Michigan, I have to take out loans, grants. I got to take everything out to send him there. Here, I think he's getting a first-rate education. In fact, I graduated from the U of M. My first 2 years, I think I had half a dozen professors, if that. Here, you've got professors that can teach you, because they have to be able to teach the lowest denominator as well as the highest denominator. At Michigan, they're teaching at a higher level, but I think for your money, you're getting a greater bang here. Why is it that a community college can charge me $1,300 for a semester, and Michigan State, even look at the 3 colleges up north, you got 3% of our population, yet we've got 3 gigantic universities. I mean, maybe we've got to start looking at downsizing. I mean, I hated when they closed schools in my area, but I sat through every meeting and I listened, and they said, it has to be done. We don't have the money. And what it does, forces people to move out of the district. Then your tax revenue goes down, and you don't have any money to run your buildings, your teachers. You don't have anything coming in.
Well, I think the good thing about what we're trying to do here today is we would love to have more of a two-way dialogue, and any ideas that you have, not just as a parent with kids in college, but your experience as a student and just your own professional experience, what we can do.
Business like you guys run your business. I've been out of business a long time ago. I mean, there's no easy fix, but are there, I mean, I want to hear some ideas that, what you guys, I mean,
in terms of funding higher education?
In terms of funding K through 12, I mean, City, thank God my kids are done with City. I mean, that is a great school, but the system is, I mean, the problem is that school is for intelligent kids that want to perform, and the problem with the Grand Rapids public schools is they see that and they don't give it the attention it needs. Because they're doing well, they can, they'll force, she has to come from all the way on the other side of town. I did it for 12 years or whatever, 6 years for one and 6 years for the other. I mean, I drove my kids to school because I know an education is what you need. And you need, in order to get anywhere in life, you need a college degree to get a decent paying job, or you'll be $7.50, $8 an hour. There's no longer the union jobs where you can work there for 30 years and have 2 houses, boats, cars. They're gone. They're all over in China because, our education system, we're just not putting enough emphasis on the higher education. The K through 12, $6,000 a pupil. I don't see where they can't run a business with that much. You have to start looking at, take Grand Rapids. Why do we have a superintendent that's constantly looking at a job elsewhere? If he was my superintendent, I'd have fired him a long time ago. But we got people who said he was great, going to give him $1 million if he leaves. You created your own problem there. I mean, I could sit down with you and discuss problems. You're telling me stuff I heard 10 years ago. It's not going to change. And unfortunately, year after year, we hear the same thing over and over and over. And it doesn't matter whether you're up there or anybody else, Mr. Dean, anybody you want to put up there, we hear the same thing over and over.
I think, well, to a certain extent, we're always going to have certain problems in our public school system. I think we recognize that. But one of the things I think the focus that we're trying to have today is, I can tell you what's not going to work is slashing $470 per pupil out of Grand Rapids Public Schools. And I'm not one of these people that believes that money is the only thing that determines the quality of a child's education. But certainly the lack of it is going to have a detrimental impact. And as policymakers at the state, I'm in my first term, Roy's in his second. I've worked in the state legislature prior to that and seen some of the issues that have come up. But, one of the mistakes I think we do make a lot of the time is when we're talking about education issues, whether it's higher education or K through 12, the people that are making the decisions whether it's a decision about hiring a superintendent or trying to change the way we do our curriculum in public schools, are people that either don't have the experience in the classroom, don't have experience as parents with kids that attend public schools, or don't have the experience or the wherewithal to go out and talk to people and find out what they think. And that's, we're not here to tell you we got all the answers. I think part of the problem is you've had people all the time who tell you what the problems are and tell you what their solutions are, but aren't willing to listen at what some of the ideas coming from just average parents are.
I think you said it best. I'll give you an example on revenue sharing. And that's called police and fire and public safety. And you say, well, it's never worked and funded. Grand Rapids, in 16 years I was a city commissioner in this city. 1984, the state said, we'll take care of this funding, and then we'll give it back to you in the form of revenue sharing. And it worked great for years. It worked great until the state started having budget. Grand Rapids has lost $100 million over 10 years. So, Grand Rapids is a very efficient, very well-run city, as far as I'm concerned. But when you take money out like that, and then you don't have no way of filling it in, or you say, well, that's who we'll cut, and we have to. Hey, I'm all for. I was always pro-business and always will be, but maybe we should have cut $1 billion, maybe not 1.8. There's plenty of answers, but they've taken a course, and I hope it works. I hope we create all kinds of jobs, and it'll stimulate it. But it hasn't hit. Time's going to tell. But as far as education, we got to decide if we want to pay for it, and even if we left it the same, they'd probably all have a textbook. So but on the college, I think that's a travesty. We either need to be more efficient. I don't know what's inside the colleges. Our Constitution basically says we can allocate. We can't tell them how to run it. And shame on us if that's what it is. In community college, my wife, my 3 sons, it is the best game there is. It is the best bang for the buck. And when you go to that, I don't know where that disparity is in there. You'd have to find out from University of Michigan. I can't see it either. But the bottom line is still is we have to decide we want to fund it. 20 years ago, like you said, it reversed itself. And what you heard in the news a lot was, well, they went over 2%. We're going to put it. Who gives a god darn fund it? If we fund them and we don't have to take out these huge loans where they got 70, 80,000, it's like taking a mortgage on a house. I'm not saying we have all the answers, but we need to be sitting at the table and figuring it out. But right now it's cut, and it's not working.
Earlier in the time that you had wanted suggestions, correct? Suggestion. Look within Senate. Representatives. What can you guys let go? We've let go of a lot. Look at our cities, streets. How many times can they tear up one road in 5 years? 10 times. It's ridiculous how much we spend on tearing up roads when we don't need to and not fixing the ones that we need. We're wasting money. The wasted money could have gone for education. Corporate jets and some of these big corporations, sell them off. I don't have a corporate jet. I don't even have a dream of having one because I'm struggling right now as a single mother to pay my mortgage. I don't have a dream of having that corporate jet because it's not in my future. They have it. They don't need it. Cut it. Look at those things that can be cut instead of cutting from the small. Start high with your cuts. Big businesses don't need the cuts. We do. We don't need to have all these extra taxes imposed on us middle-class workers to hurt us more. I mean, I work resource because I'm the only one. And I have to work double on the weekends to be able to pay my mortgage, get them to school. I can't even afford a new car to get them back and forth. The one I'm driving is dying. And all of these larger corporations have all this money that they're saying We need to concentrate on this. What are they doing about it? Nothing. They're not looking within to see what little things that they can cut before they cut us.
And that's probably a very unpopular idea, but I think they should just cut out school athletic programs. Now, not physical education, that's important. But why are we spending millions of dollars on high school football stadiums when, let's face it, 90% of the kids on these football teams haven't got a chance of ever making it in athletics? And I know there's scholarships out there, but Europe, what they do is they have no athletic programs at all in the schools. Instead, the kids join clubs and do all their athletic programs through that. Their soccer clubs, or their football clubs, as they call them over there, and all that. It's an entirely separate deal. It's not part of the education system, and it helps them to be able to fund their schools. And I think we need to just drop athletics. Keep physical education because that's important. But I don't see the need for football stadiums or baseball programs or any of that kind of stuff. I just think it's a waste of money.
Let me just, I'm probably going to disagree with you a little bit on that. But I do think that what you're saying is, this is, we're forcing districts. We don't have to get rid of it. We don't have to, the state doesn't have to outlaw school athletic programs. What we're doing by continuously making these kind of cuts, whether it was, we made smaller cuts in the past few years or weren't keeping up with the cost of districts, is we're forcing districts to make those choices, not just with athletic programs, but music and art. I would disagree on this point specifically. Is there's a lot of kids. We went through this debate with Grand Rapids Public Schools last year about the hubs and art and eliminating some of the programs. My mom was a very passionate advocate for the art. She's an art teacher. And one of the things, and she's taught at Harrison, Alger, Iroquois, a lot of schools where you have a lot of real difficult kids. But one of the things that would keep some of those kids in those classes were those programs, art, music. And I think in a lot of cases, if we can keep kids in the classroom and not drop out because they have the opportunity to play football or baseball, certainly we should look at how the cost is borne and who's paying for it, whether they're big capital improvements like a stadium or some other, something that might be a little bit extraneous or extravagant, certainly. But I think having those options for kids is important, especially when, it's difficult sometimes to keep kids interested when they're teenagers. I know if I didn't have high school sports, I probably wouldn't have made it through high school. So I know there's a lot of kids like that. But I think the point you make about making sure that we're focusing on the things that are really important to educate kids is valid. But, I think we can do both. I think we have the wherewithal to do it.
This is about the athletic things. Like he said, I think that we should keep the athletics because it's since what my mom said about we just get gym once a week. The practice is for 2 hours every day, maybe sometimes not on Fridays, and that's our extra gym time, and we get to associate with our friends and we have fun playing sports because I play volleyball, cheerleading, bowling, and soccer, and that's really fun for me since I don't get gym a lot. And last year in 6th grade, I never got gym at all.
I think it's important to have a balanced approach to kids' education. I think sports they're part of our culture too, and I can just tell you, if any of us dropped that bill, we'd try to we'd be run out of town pretty quickly. Yeah, we'd be. I think that would be one you'd want to do when you're term limited in your last term, because I don't think you'd be coming back. But I do think figuring out what's the most important things we need to do with education is a larger philosophical discussion that needs to happen in Michigan, along with some of the educational reform stuff we're doing. But I think on that specific one, it's probably a little ways off.
It might be a little way out, but it brings to the point of a discussion, though, and I appreciate it. I agree with my colleague, but if we don't hear it, then we don't know it. And it actually kind of, like when you said it, kind of took me back. I think of how sports at Union High School really helped me stay in school, and not that I was going anywhere, but it was vital. But yet I don't, I'm trying to think. I don't really know how much they spend on athletics, so I couldn't even tell you Grand Rapids right now. So yeah, but appreciate that.
While your idea may sound a little bit different right now,
Your perspective.
Who would have ever thought that Republicans were going to propose tax and pensions? That would have been a crazy. Or getting rid of local, local control from governments. I think, while I probably am, there's a lot of issues. The only good positive thing I can see about the situation is if we're willing to listen, there's an opportunity to really do things differently, but do it in the right way. I think so far we've done things differently. The process. Really,